What's going on, y'all? It's Coach Trav, man, with another episode from the Mental Health Playbook. I'm back with y'all, and I just wanted to share my story as to why mental peace performance was created. I want you guys to know that, you're going to start facing a lot of challenges in college, but it's normal. The thought process you have, where you feel like you're going to lose your love for the game, it's a part of the journey, and it's okay. But it's also important that you keep fighting. You know what I mean? You're not alone, and the reason why I share this is because I went through it. If you think of yourself as just an athlete, just know that you're shortchanging yourself and you're doing just what the world wants you to do. Not thinking highly of yourself, not being confident in who you are outside of the sport. So you know, working on those things will make you a better human being. Still trying to get through it, right? I think that's cool as well. You know, for me as a coach, coaching guys physically, I feel like we did a great job of sending kids to school, but we don't really do that great of a job of preparing athletes to do what it takes to stay. And the reason why I understand this is from my own experience. You know, um, Freshman year going into Howard University, man, I was prepared physically to play ball. Um, Came from a top-notch high school, Shaman Madonna, where I was coaching previously, and I was physically ready. And one of the first things I remember when I got into school, man, one of the first meetings, they said, look to your left, look to your right. The person next to you probably won't be here next year. And I thought they was joking at the time, but they weren't joking at all. And what I found out was, 33% of athletes don't finish after their first year of school. You know what I mean? So I go through, my first semester. I'm super excited, traveling, going to class, playing ball with the team. I was locked in on the field physically and mentally with the athletics aspect, but you know, as far as academics, I wasn't locked in as much because I was super excited about the idea of, you know, being on my own in college and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that I know a lot of athletes are not really prepared for, to balance that, student athlete life where you're thrown with the responsibilities and freedom at the same time. So I go through my first semester and then boom, you know, at the end of it, I was academically. Well, first, let me back up a second. The first time I realized I was struggling was my midterms. I got my midterm grades back, and they weren't that great. And that was the first time. That was when it hit me that I've been in school this whole time. So what was happening was I was in class, physically, but I wasn't in class mentally. You know what I mean? So the second half of my first semester, I was scrambling to get things together, but it was too late. Like I couldn't grasp it because there were a lot of things that I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about adding a class. I didn't know anything about dropping a class, withdrawing. I went for help, but I didn't go to the right people for help. And that's still on my bad. That was my mistake. And I was academically ineligible my first semester, which meant no team activities. I couldn't lift weights with the team or nothing like that. But that was cool. I was okay with that because I was just so focused on not coming home. I didn't want to be that guy that didn't finish. I didn't want to be that guy that had to answer those questions of what happened. So my second semester of school, the adjustments that I made was I just started asking questions and I started leaning on the upperclassmen and going to them for guidance and sharing, asking for their expertise on what classes to take and when to take them. And that was just something that I wasn't all about when I first got to school. Um, when I first got there, I was a competitor. I didn't really want friends. I was there to do a job. I'm trying to start, I'm trying to play. So, I was cool, but I didn't go out my way to ask questions or to build relationships. So what got me back on track was building relationships with my teammates, and building relationships with my professors the second time around. You know, um, the upperclassmen helped me a great deal with figuring out which psychology classes to take, what classes I should hold to the summer. because the more challenging classes, you could just focus on that, when you're in school for the summer. And another thing I started to do was just building relationships with the professors, talking with them, getting there, you know, just getting feedback from them about where I was academically. And that's something I feel like most athletes need to do more of too, instead of just, some of us are kind of built to just sit in the back of the class and just try to blend in, where we don't want to participate really. We don't want to get asked questions. We kind of just want to be there just in case our coaches check class. You know what I'm saying? Because coaches, they want to make sure that you're in class, so they'll send, different students or different guys on the team to kind of check to see if you're in class and stuff. They'll send coaches themselves. And because of that, we don't really lock in on what we should be doing. So I just started focusing on building more relationships and, being better with time management, because people tell you all the time that you're going to be super busy. And that's not always the case, man. I encourage athletes to take, time to, delve more into their studies, because we put a lot of time into, I know for me, I put a lot of time into video games, because I didn't have video games a lot growing up. So when I got to college, man, I was just like, on it all the time. Had a, PS2 at the time, and was going through season mode left and right, and Madden and the NCAA. I was, geeked to have that. And so I wasn't really doing right by my time, as well. So when I got things together, it was, focusing more on my books, studying more, doing better with time management, building relationships with my professors, um, and doing things of that nature, man. And that got me back on track for my second semester. And I really want to give a shout out to all of the old heads that kind of helped me out during that time. Um, another person, his name was Bilal Russell, man. We had the same major. He passed away, but if it wasn't for him, man, I probably would have been stuck. He gave a lot of great advice on what courses to take, in the psychology field, and I feel, I'm very thankful for his guidance, man. And he really didn't have to do that, but he wasn't even on the football team. He was a basketball player, and he talked to me a lot about psychology and what I should study and what classes I should take and when I should take them. And I have a lot to thank for him just for that. So, and that made me a better upperclassman when it was my turn, because I shared that same advice, to the class, the underclassmen that was under me, So just wanted to share that, what I'm saying? Building relationships and being better with time management, um, and then focusing on, doing whatever it takes, man, to make sure I was on the field, because a lot of the guys that we came in with as freshmen, they didn't make it. So we had a huge class of maybe like 11 or 11 or 12 offensive and defensive linemen, and by the time I was a senior, it was only like six of us left. So it's real. A lot of guys fell off academically. Some guys just kind of just fell to the wayside, just like this isn't for me. And so when it comes to us going to college, and it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity for us to grow and network and build relationships. And sometimes we don't go into it with the right mindset. We're just focused solely on playing ball, especially with NIL deals and stuff floating around. But what I want athletes to know is, like, at some point, that clock runs out. If you do happen to make it, that clock runs out, man. And you're 26 years old and you're trying to figure out, what you want to do with yourself. They're telling you, you're too old, or this sport's not for you, and then you have to figure out, at that moment, who you are as a person, and that's tough, man. So mental peace performance was built around, helping athletes figure out that first year of school, getting it together, and then figuring out their purpose afterwards. Another personal thing I wanted to share too, man, was, you know, at one point I was hit with adversity to where I was ready to walk away from the game, and I kind of lost my love for it. Um, you know, if you love the game, right? A lot of people say that they do. It's going to get tested, whether it be through battling back from an injury or, you know, dealing with a different set of coaches. Because another thing that I had to deal with was the coaches who recruited me, right? The coach who recruited me was gone after my first year. So I kind of had to, that person that I was comfortable going to, I had to readjust, because again, I refused to come home and I had to figure it out. Um, a lot of different things happen where, you have to be resilient. And if you don't practice being resilient or practice dealing with adversity before going to school, it's kind of hard to deal with it, on the spot. You know what I'm saying? So that was a time where, like I was stressed out and trying to figure things out, and it was tough. Um, and I had to just kind of pull myself out of a dark place because there was a point, in my second or third year, things wasn't going the way that I wanted it to, and I started to lose my love for the game. And I remember the moment, the games where I felt it. Um, it was an away game, Norfolk State, and it's funny because when you're a competitor, man, you remember your losses more, more than your wins. And that was for me, that was a personal like L because I just wasn't, locked in the way I should have been. I was just questioning a lot about myself, a lot about the game. But I share this with athletes now because I know at some point your love for the game is going to get tested, and it's all about how you're going to respond. You know what I mean? Lucky for me, you know, um, I ended up having coaches that kind of restored my faith, and that doesn't always happen. But I was very fortunate to kind of bounce back, and my teammates supported me too because they knew I was off. We just, nobody could really figure out what it was, and even I couldn't figure out what it was. But I had certain guys that was able to kind of talk to me and kind of when I was able to battle back, they noticed and they were very supportive of me coming back to being who I was. When I was in tip top shape mentally. So I share that for athletes to understand and know like if there's a moment where you're like struggling with your love for the game and you start to have doubts, it's kind of normal. I don't want you to feel like it's not the norm for you to struggle with that because I dealt with it too, and that's kind of the reason why I coach, man. When I coach guys physically, it's like I am letting them know all of the things that I wish somebody would have told me, um, just to kind of battle through. So in my success as a coach, man, it's a lot of it was, not just preparing my guys to win state championships, but preparing them to finish college and what they might have to deal with in going to college. Being a competitor and having to compete. A lot of people struggle with having to compete. A lot of people struggle with being disciplined, being told where to be, and being on time and stuff like that. Making sure you go to bed early so you don't miss early morning workouts. Like a lot of that, plays a factor into you being successful as a college athlete. You know, um, if you miss meetings or late to meetings and stuff like that, you're not going to make it. You're going to be in that 33% that don't make it after their first year. And that's something that you really truly want to avoid. So you want to build those good habits, before you even go off to college, man. Like take high school ball seriously and whatever, your vice is in high school, like that's pretty much how it's going to be, when you're in college because everything you'll ever need, good or bad, is going to be there for you. If you are a person who loves to watch film in high school, then you're going to have film available to you all the time in college. If you're a person that loves to lift weights and work out, you're going to have the facilities right there for you to do your thing. But you have a lot of distractions there as well. You're going to have freedom. It's going to be, you know, drugs and alcohol all over the place, girls all over the place. And if you're not really focused on what you're supposed to do, you might fall into that 33% that end up coming home after your first year. And you're going to have to tell that story of what happened or why you didn't make it. You know what I mean? So, and that's the thing that I want. I want to prevent that for athletes. I want to help you guys, transition in, get uh, the school lifestyle under your belt in a positive way to where you can figure it out. Because once you got it, you got it. But you got to go in, with the game plan of knowing what you want to study and, asking questions of when is the right time to take the most difficult courses. And then, going for help, as a freshman too, you're going to have, study hall to where you're going to have to complete a certain amount of hours of study hall and just taking that seriously and not just being in there wasting time, you know, and just preparing in that regard. So just wanted to share that, man, a part of my story of, me being academically eligible my first semester. And it wasn't because I wasn't smart. I just didn't, there were just certain things that I just didn't know, as far as athletic wise, I was ready. I knew I was ready. I was strong enough. I was fast enough. And, because of how I was trained in high school, I knew I was ready to compete at the college level. But, I was still redshirted, and that was a hard pill for me to swallow. So, you know, traveling, being with the team and dressing, but still not playing. That played a part. That was a damage to the ego as well. And, you know, that was that was a difficult time because, you know, a sport that I loved, I had to just kind of just sit for a year. Even though I was dressing, I was traveling, I think the coaches was trying to prepare me for, just the routine of what it takes to be a college athlete. Because a lot of times when you're redshirted, you don't travel. But I traveled, and it was just tough, just dressing and not playing, and me not understanding why I wasn't playing because at that time I had no idea what being a redshirt athlete was. Um, and that's kind of where some of the struggles kind of to creep in because I'm not doing what I love and I have to sit and I'm just watching and I'm like in my mind I know I can make a difference. I know I could help my team win, but it just wasn't in the cards for me to play right then and there. And you know dealing with that, and then after the season, being academically eligible, and then spending the spring getting back on track, and then even then being disciplined and having to work out on my own because I couldn't compete or practice with the team. I had to miss spring ball and stuff like that. So that was really tough. But on a positive note, I was able to, bounce back academically. I had a 3.0 after my second semester, which was, man, I was back in good standing and I could, play with my team again. But a lot of the guys that I came in with, they didn't make it, and to this day, I still wonder about, how they're doing, where they are, because, it's been years, So it just, I want athletes to kind of understand, the different things that could kind of, be a barrier to success, man. But a lot of times it's just us. We have to take responsibility and be aware of the different challenges, of, the different kind of things that goes on with college, man. So just know that it's important to, understand the importance of time management and stress management, you know, figuring out, who to go to in a time of need, figuring out who can, going to upperclassmen for advice. That would be my advice to a lot of the young guys going in as freshmen, man. Like build those relationships, build those bonds, talk to your professor and stuff like that. And once you get it, you know, now it's time to figure out, once you get college down, like you got into the rhythm, and you've learned yourself, you figured out what classes, what time, what days work out for you. One thing I learned too, I didn't like Tuesday, Thursday classes because that meant I had to be in the class for an hour and a half as opposed to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which was only an hour. So looking in the mirror and asking myself certain questions, you know, uh, what works best for me, study wise or class wise. It was Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays was better because I could sit in the class for an hour without an issue. But for an hour and a half, that was a struggle. So that was one of the adjustments I made my second semester too. And that just took me looking into the mirror and being honest with myself. Okay, what mistakes did I make? My first semester. Another thing was thinking I could take 8 o'clock classes. Because we are in high school, school starts early in the morning anyway. So we going to college thinking, you know what? I could take an 8 o'clock class too, because I've done it in high school. It's different, but in college is different. There's something about those 8 o'clock classes that didn't do well for me. It might do well for you, but the important thing is, you have to look into the mirror and figure out what works best for me as a student athlete. And looking into the mirror is very hard for a lot of people to do, but in order to be successful, that's a trait that you're going to have to develop. Ask yourself the tough questions. Self discovery is it's a tool that could benefit you, in high school, college, and into adulthood because it never really stops. You're going to always have to improve, and that takes reflection. So I just wanted to share that with y'all, man, about my journey and how I came up out of it. Just know that if you're feeling certain things or going through certain struggles, that you're not alone in it. But for me as a coach, man, I just want y'all to finish. And that's why the word finish is always a trigger word whenever I run drills or when I'm coaching physically. I would always encourage my linemen to finish their blocks. I would encourage my running backs to finish their runs. And I would use that word all the time. Finish the drill. Finish, 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 finish. And the reason why I would do that is so I would hope that you would hear my voice when you go to college to just finish. You know what I'm saying? Because I know it's tough, but it can be done. You start off a journey, do whatever it takes to finish. So that's why we're here at Mental Peace Performance, man. Just like, giving y'all these nuggets, man, and just letting you know that, you can overcome. You could overcome these challenges. You're just not an athlete because you're more than an athlete, right? So I appreciate y'all for listening.